Hey there guys, I hope you're all doing so well. If you're new here, my name is Carly and I am a high school English teacher in Australia and I've been in the industry for 9 years now. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you what it's really like to be a high school teacher in Australia. So if that's something you're keen to see, grab yourself a cuppa and let's get into the video. Okay, first up, a little bit of a disclaimer. I am a teacher in New South Wales and each state has their own sort of departmental body and might have kind of different things going on in each of their schools. So I'm obviously going to be talking about it from the perspective of New South Wales. Things could be different in different states, but just keep that in mind. So first things first, university. How do you actually become a teacher? You do need to do a university degree to become a teacher. You can do a straight up Bachelor of Education. I'm not sure necessarily if they offer those for secondary schooling, but definitely if you want to be a primary school teacher, and they're usually 4 years. For myself, I did a 3 years Bachelor of Arts, majoring in Community, Culture and Environment, and then a 1 year Graduate Diploma of Education, all through the University of Wollongong. The 1 year Grad Dip Ed is not available anymore, and now instead you need to do a 2 years Master's degree. So to become a high school teacher, you need to get your bachelor's degree. It could be in arts or it could be in an area of interest that sort of relates to whatever subject you are going to be teaching for high school, and then you also need to do your Masters of Education on top of that. And whatever subjects you predominantly studied in your undergraduate degree, that will determine the method subjects you are eligible for in your Master's degree, and essentially the subjects that you are going to be approved to teach. During your master's degree, you will need to do placement, which is essentially where you go out into the schools and you get some work experience. It is not paid, but it is necessary for your degree. And while you are there, you'll have a supervising teacher who will write your prac report. At the end, once you have graduated, you can sign up with Teach New South Wales and you will need to do your interview. So essentially you will go to one of their office locations and they will ask you a series of questions, usually around the professional teaching standards, and you will be able to use evidence from your prac and any other experience you've had in schools, as well as sort of theoretical understanding from your university degrees to help inform your interview. Your interview is kind of important because not only do they say yes or no whether you get to be a teacher with New South Wales Department of Education, but they're also very influential in whether you get a targeted grad position. So targeted grad is a very coveted position, but essentially it's taking into consideration your interview, also your prac report and your uni grades, and it's basically saying this person is an awesome teacher, let's give them a full-time job straight away. So if you get targeted grad, they can kind of send you anywhere in the state, but it's permanency straight away, which is very much something that all first year teachers are looking forward to gaining. New South Wales Department of Education also has a scholarship program that you can apply for while you are studying, where essentially they will pay for your university degree, but in return, once you graduate, they get to send you anywhere in the state, and it's likely going to be one of those hard to staff locations. So definitely only sign up for that if you're willing to go teach out in the middle of nowhere. When you are starting out, there's essentially 3 different types of employment that you can gain. Obviously, the first one is permanency, which is pretty hard to get. Unless you're a targeted grad, you apply for the graduate position, or you apply for permanent jobs that are in hard to staff areas. You might be able to gain permanency that way. The next one is temporary employment, which is generally a year-long contract. Those ones are also coveted and are certainly hard to get in more desirable schools. And in order to sort of maintain a temp contract year after year, you really need to be going above and beyond, participating in different programs run by the school, leading different initiatives so that you can add those to your CV, and the school will see you as a valuable resource and want to keep you around the year after. As someone who has been on the temp game for, I think, the first 7 years of my teaching career, it was hard, it was really exhausting, and it kind of also created a very unsustainable pattern for me because I was always pushing myself to do things, and now I'm crispy burnt out. And then the third way that you can be employed is casual employment, which is just on a day-to-day basis. People might book you in for a week or a longer block if someone is knowing they're going to be sick or is going away. Casual has its benefits in the sense that you get paid more on a day-to-day basis. You also don't have to do any marking, any reports, any meetings, things like that, but you also don't get paid during the holidays, and if you're sick, you just have to take the day off. You don't really get to use up any of your sick leave. So let's spend a bit more time looking at the temp and permanent aspect of things, because that's where sort of a lot of the mechanics of being a teacher will come into play. So when we think of being a teacher, we think of going in the classroom, we're engaging with the students, we're hopefully inspiring them and, you know, teaching them new content. But that is a very minuscule part of your job. It's the most important part of your job, if you ask me. But oftentimes you can get bogged down with the administration that comes before, during, and after that. So before teaching, you need to plan all of your lessons. You need to be extremely organized. I would definitely suggest having a calendar, having a teacher diary, and having your lessons online. The problem though with online lessons is that the platforms are constantly changing, and especially the platforms that your school is going to endorse. So one minute you might be using Moodle, and then it's Microsoft 365, and then it's Google Classroom, and then it's Canvas, and then it's something else. And they're constantly sort of evolving technology, and as such, the online platforms are constantly changing. But if you have all of your resources online, it's a whole heap easier to transfer them over as the platforms do change. Next up, during the lesson. Obviously, you'll need to mark the roll, you may need to take uniform, you may need to write toilet passes. There may be something that occurs during the lesson and you'll need to go back afterwards and write up a discipline entry or a well-being entry online. You may need to call parents based on things that you saw during the lesson, or talk to your head teacher or the year advisor, or get kids to stay back and talk to them about your concerns, or keep them in for detention sometimes. So there's a lot going on in the lesson that is not just teaching. After the lesson or outside of the lesson, you've got drafts to mark. Some kids won't send you drafts, but the ones that are challenging themselves to elevate the quality of their work and increase their marks will. And when you have an assessment task coming up, sometimes you may be getting a draft from everyone in the class, or half the class might submit you drafts, or some kids might submit you multiple drafts. You also have meetings. We love a good meeting. You'll have staff meetings, you'll have faculty meetings, you might have pilot mark meetings. If you're a year advisor, you'll have extra meetings there. If you're on teams, you'll have meetings for all of those teams. Sometimes you just might have meetings for, I don't know what reason, but there's a whole heap of them. Parent-teacher meetings. You'll have them too. Speaking of parent and teacher, you'll have to do reports. Sometimes once a year. At my school, it's twice a year. They're fun. You'll also have a crap ton of emails. You'll clear out your inbox at the end of the day, but come the next morning, it will be full again and you'll spend the day trying to keep on top of them. All the while, different people are coming up to you and asking questions about this kid or that kid or this year group or this assessment task that's coming up or this resource that they'd like you to send to them. There's a lot of things going on at once. You'll have staff development days and all sorts of professional learning. You'll need to do accreditation, and then once you've done your accreditation, you'll start your maintenance cycle, and then you'll need to submit for maintenance as well. Oh, and each year you have to select at least 3 PDP goals and do a whole PDP, and at least have 2 lesson observations during the year to show that you are meeting your PDP goals. You're a mandatory reporter, so you might actually need to report some serious well-being concerns. Speaking of mandatory, you'll have mandatory online training, and it seems like every single year, the number of mandatory training courses just continues to increase. You'll have duties, maybe during recess, maybe during lunch. You'll need to take your food out there with you. Oftentimes you won't have your own classroom and you'll need to be moving from one room to the next around the school. And this might mean carrying bags of books or other resources with you that can get quite heavy. You'll need to tidy up the room once the kids leave it and then race back to the staff room as fast as you can so that you can go to the toilet and try and shovel in as much food as you can. Take a little bit of breather, have a chat to some of your friends, and then get ready to do it all again. Being a high school teacher is incredibly busy. It's a lot more than just what happens in the classroom itself, and each year the amount of administrative work that you need to do is just increasing and increasing, and teacher shortages are getting worse and worse. While there are a lot of stressful aspects of being a high school teacher, clearly we do it for the love of it. We have a passion for education, for empowering our students, enabling them to become independent and creative and positive people who can contribute meaningfully to our society. If it wasn't for them and the success that we see on a daily basis, I don't know how many people would do this job. I hear a lot people saying, well, you get 12 weeks of holidays a year. Yeah. I deserve those holidays. And trust me, if anyone else was in our shoes, you would be hanging out for the holidays as much as I do. I hope this gave you a little bit more information of what it's truly like to be a high school teacher in Australia. If you have any more questions or areas of that you'd like me to talk specifically about, make sure that you mention them down in the comments. Please hit subscribe. I put out new videos every Wednesday and Saturday. And with that being said, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week. I'll see you all in my next video. Bye guys.